We need to talk about pipelines again. Guess what? Canadians are finally waking up to the fact that we need them. And I should correct myself. Canadians have known this for a very long time, at least a lot of us. What I'm talking about is Liberal voters, former and present Liberal voters, finally coming around to our way of thinking. New polling from the Angus Reid Institute shows overwhelming support for two major pipeline projects that the Trudeau Liberals left for dead: Energy East and Northern Gateway. And why? Because after years of being told we need to phase out Canadian oil and gas for the environment.
They're going to say, did Justin Trudeau just tell us that government ideology needs to get out of the way of innovation in the oil sands? I know that they're going to tear their hair out because
absolutely.
They feel that it's used. They don't feel like you've had the industry's back. They don't feel like you've had Alberta's back.
I don't think the oil industry has had the back of the oil sands workers by dragging its heels on decarbonization.
Because of our commitment to fight climate change, we are working very, very hard to decarbonize and develop other sources of energy.
There will be limitations on how much natural gas you can use.
Yes, absolutely. That's what fighting climate change looks like. Limiting the amount of fossil fuels we're using.
There's a level of admiration I actually have for China. Because their basic dictatorship is allowing them to actually turn their economy around on a dime and say, we need to go green as fast as we need to start, investing in solar.
We're seeing what happens when you kneecap the development of your own vast natural resources to please your World Economic Forum masters. Oh, you might own nothing, but you sure won't be happy. The numbers don't lie. Half of Canadians, about 49%, say the federal government isn't doing enough to expand pipeline capacity. Meanwhile, 29% have been gaslit into believing the Liberals have handled this mess properly, while 22% think Trudeau has been too pro-pipeline. Yes, that last group still exists. I'm as surprised as you are. Let's talk about Energy East. This was a no-brainer pipeline project that would have transported Alberta oil all the way to refineries in Eastern Canada. But Trudeau didn't just let this project die. He strangled it to death with his bare hands through ever-changing regulatory hurdles and environmental reviews designed to make sure it never happened. Trudeau bent over backwards to satisfy anti-oil activists and environmental radicals. And the result? Private investment walked away from a project that could have secured our energy independence. But now the support for Energy East has surged. 65% of Canadians want it back, up from 58% in 2019. Even in Quebec, where opposition to the pipeline was once strongest, support has climbed from 33% to 47%. 47% also being the percentage of oil and gas Quebec imports from the United States. And get this, even Premier François Legault, who once opposed it, is suddenly willing to consider it if Quebecers get on board. And it sounds like they are.
Il y a déjà eu ces deux projets-là. À l'époque, il n'y avait pas d'acceptabilité sociale. Et ce genre de projet-là doit avoir une acceptabilité sociale. Les projets, pour l'instant, ne sont pas déposés, ne sont pas existants. Si ces projets-là sont déposés, bien, on va les regarder, puis on va s'assurer qu'il y ait quand même.
It's almost like people are starting to realize that oil doesn't magically appear in gas stations and refineries need something to refine. Now, out west, the Northern Gateway project was another victim of Trudeau's anti-oil crusade. Trudeau banned oil tanker traffic on BC's northern coastline just to make sure this pipeline from my neck of the woods to the northern coast of British Columbia would never be built. But again, Canadians aren't buying the Liberal lies anymore. The latest poll shows that 55% of Canadians want Northern Gateway revived, with only 32% still opposing it. Even in BC, where opposition was supposed to be the strongest, more than half of residents now support it. Of course, the Liberal establishment won't admit they were wrong. Mark Carney, the globalist darling and frontrunner for the next Liberal Party leader, still insists that canceling Northern Gateway was the right financial and environmental decision.
Do you support the Prime Minister's decision to veto the Northern Gateway pipeline, Mr. Carney?
I understand the veto of the Northern Gateway pipeline.
You support it?
given both environmental and commercial reasons.
Do you support it?
I think it is sensible. I wasn't involved in the decision, but I think it was the right decision.
Right for who, Mark? Certainly not for Canadians struggling with skyrocketing energy prices. Maybe for your Brookfield investors helping build pipelines in the UAE and Brazil, though. Let's not forget the one pipeline Trudeau did touch, Trans Mountain. What started off as a $5 billion private sector project was hijacked by the Liberals, turned into a government-owned disaster, and now is a $35 billion taxpayer-funded boondoggle. Why? Because Trudeau refused to enforce the law. He let radical activists and bureaucrats delay construction and then forced Canadians to foot the bill for his incompetence. 7 times over budget, years behind schedule, and zero accountability for the mess.
The Trudeau government could not even follow its own process, that it failed to hit the standards that it had imposed for itself. That is extremely alarming.
Now, this poll proves what we already knew. Canadians want pipelines. We want energy security. We want jobs. We want to be able to sell to more than one customer, the United States. We want world market prices through world market access. But Trudeau and his liberal elite would rather kill our domestic energy sector to appease their Davos buddies and radical climate activists. Meanwhile, the United States, China, and OPEC, they're laughing all the way to the bank. The question is now, will the Trudeau Liberals listen to Canadians for once, or will they keep pushing their anti-oil, anti-jobs agenda? With an election looming and a fed-up electorate, they might not have a choice to at least pretend to be pro-pipeline. Canadians are done with Trudeau's energy sabotage, and they're done with the Trudeau Liberals. For Rebel News, I'm Sheila Gunn Reid. The last 10 years, the Trudeau Liberals have spent blocking Canadian pipelines. Well, it's not a Canadian agenda. It's part of the globalist agenda, the Great Green Reset. Sign our petition against this in favor of Canadian jobs and Canadian national sovereignty. Please go to nogreenreset.com.